Hi, I'm Tommy Baker, Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Veteran Services. The video you're about to watch is part of a series where we spotlight the incredible stories of our brave veterans right here in the volunteer state. We hope you enjoy this video, and thanks again to all who have served. So you get commissioned, you join the Air Force in 1956, and you sign up for a fighter pilot training. What was that transition from civilian life to military life? What was that like? And then I'm sure fighter pilot training is pretty tough. You might want to tell us what that was like as well.
Well, it was, when I graduated, I had a choice. I could have gone and played pro football for the Rams.
Wow.
At that point, or I could have gone to work for International Harvester, or I could have gone to the Air Force. They offered me, I was the outstanding cadet for the ROTC. In fact, I was the division commander for our unit there at Penn State. So when I went to summer camp, I was able to convince them that I could get along okay with everybody. And so when I went in, they offered me a regular commission, and I wasn't sure I wanted to, because I didn't know what it was going to be like in the Air Force. So I just took a reserve commission, and it took me about 4 years before I finally got regular commission. But going into the Air Force, the first thing we did is go in pilot training. Of course, I'm a country boy. I wanted to get as far away from home as I could get. So I took the furthest training base, which was out in Tucson, Arizona. And it was an old Army Air Force base from World War II. We had something like, I think, 18 auxiliary fields, and all the auxiliary fields were patches of concrete out in the middle of nowhere. The first guy that was going to fly went out with the IP, and the others went out on a vehicle. And then we flew, and then the last guy flying flew back into the main base there at Marana Air Base. So first of all, that was new to me. I had no problem with the academics, but I was not built for flying, so to speak. I had an instructor, had probably about 16,000 hours of flight time, and he was very patient with me to a point, until finally he says, "Harding, you're going to have to be able to learn how to land this airplane," because I was rounding out too high or rounding out too low. And so he took that airplane, he flew down the runway, probably a foot off the runway, the whole length of that little runway out there. He says, "Now you see where that runway is? Now don't round out above that, don't round out below that. Round out means just you're ready to land." So I learned to fly from a guy that was an expert. And from that point on, I realized that I had to work as hard as I could to be able to fly.
Let's fast forward 1962. It's the Cuban Missile Crisis. You was part of a kind of a unique mission during that time.
Yes.
Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we were stationed at MacDill Air Force Base. MacDill Air Force Base had long runways. We were flying the F-84, which was a very ground-loving aircraft. We were tasked to fly missions down to Cuba. We would be loaded up wing to wingtip with napalm. And our job was going to be to try to get rid of the missiles that were stationed down in Cuba. We'd get called at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We would fly all the way down there till, I don't know how far away from Cuba. We could see it. That's how close we were. And then we would get turned around. We did that several times. I don't remember. I think it was 4 times. Kennedy was able to convince them to turn their ships around, and we left. We never did get to drop one there. But that's my first combat, and of course that's very, very exciting. You're flying down, and they've got a lot of surface-to-air missiles, which were in those days weren't all that great, but they were still very accurate. And we were flying a fairly slow aircraft. Even though it's a jet, it was very slow.
But you had several, and are qualified on several platforms. You mentioned the Bird Dog, the U-10, the T-33, F-84s. What did you think about the A-1 Skyraider? I know that's what your secretary, you ended up in an A-1. What did you think about that platform?
It's the greatest aircraft we could have used in Vietnam. It's a World War II aircraft. We had 15 hard stations we could put ordnance on. We couldn't carry anything internally, but we could carry, that's a lot of ordnance. We could carry tons of ordnance on those stations, as the A-10 could do the same thing. That gave us the opportunity, I think, to prove to the world that we were not going to let somebody that got shot down behind enemy lines just falter.
Right.
We would go get them. And I think that's what gave those POWs that were in Hanoi the will to stay there, to fight, to live, because they knew that we were not going to leave them there. We were going to do whatever we could to get them out.
So you're there for your second tour now. It was during, and did another 154 combat missions. You ended up with just shy of 600 combat missions in both of your tours there in Vietnam. And I know you have a complete, we're looking at the shadow box here of all these medals and things you won over there and earned. Could you tell us about how the incident where you earned the Air Force Cross, which is just one step below the Medal of Honor in terms of medals?
We had a lot of opportunities to supply support for different missions that were going on over there. And this particular mission was being conducted by the Navy off the carrier Coral Sea. They were delivering munitions along the Ho Chi Minh Trail. We were bombing on that day. He was bombing in A6. And as he rolled in, we had a lot of anti-aircraft artillery along those trails. They were trying to protect those trails. He got hit with a 57 millimeter anti-aircraft artillery piece, which blew him out of the sky. He was able to eject and landed in the jungle. It's triple canopy jungle over there, which means you got vines growing low, you got some trees up a little bit higher, and then you got these big tall trees that are 60, 70 feet tall, about like these pine trees out here. And of course, it's very hard to see down into those. Not only is it hard to see down into them, but it's also hard for a helicopter to make a rescue because they can't land. But here we had to use what we call a jungle penetrator, which is a great big chunk of iron with 3 leaves that pull out, pull a leaf out, sit on it, strap onto it, and pull you up in a helicopter. But in order to do that, we've got to clear it out to make sure that there's not aircraft around. We went out there with a F4, what we call a fastback. He was a 4, he was in an F4, so he could go fast and down. He went in on the beep. When Clyde Smith bailed out, his beeper automatically went off until he shut it off. Anyhow, we hit home in on that. He got over the top of him, and he could tell exactly where he was. So we decided, okay, we're going to go make the rescue. We briefed it to our headquarters, 7th Air Force, down in Saigon. And they said, you're not going to be able to do it. We had to show a way we could do it. So my plan was to go in at high altitude, go down through the clouds. We could stay where the helicopters going down through the clouds until we got over the top, and then we could spend some time there and pull them back out again. Well, they disapproved the plan. So we went back out that day, myself and a wingman. We asked the F4 to show us where the survivor, where he thought the survivor was. He says, I'll go down over the top and pop up through the clouds. So he didn't go down below the clouds. He went down to minimum altitude and pulled straight up. He popped out. I went over where he was, and then I just circled down through the clouds. But the guy, my wingman, was up on top. He says, they're shooting at you because you see the airburst coming up through the clouds. We decided we couldn't make the rescue that day. So eventually we went back, did a lot of planning, and actually 4 days later, we were able to go out after we had used our forward air controller to essentially, bit by bit, take out these gun positions. Flew over a bunch of sorties. One at that time more than we'd ever flown. One rescue. Actually, to get 2 guys, we only got one. The other one was captured or was killed. But we were able to do the kind of planning we needed to do to, instead of coming at high altitude and going down, which put us in the aircraft artillery places within their range, we came in at very, very low altitude so they couldn't see us. Again, triple canopy jungle. You can only see essentially straight up. We were able to get in and get him out.
Great. I know I read where once y'all were back in safety, you went up to Major Clyde Smith and said, "Hey, I'm Sandy One," and you guys had a big hug, and of course he was very appreciative of what y'all had done.
We're still in contact.
I was fixing to say, so you have maintained contact with him over the years?
Yeah.
Wow, that is awesome. That's great.
He's a tough old Marine.